this podcast, allows me to bring on a lot of friends, but a lot of the greatest of the greats. And this person here is certainly in that category of one of the greatest athletes of all times, one of the greatest Olympians of all times. But I like to have people on who are also one of the greatest people I've ever met of all time. With that, I'm going to bring in a good friend of mine who we respectfully call each other, each one's besties, the one and only Lindsey Vonn. How are you, bestie?
Hey, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I love the product placement there. Are you a spokesman for somebody? I can't tell.
I don't know if you could tell, but I just got done skiing, so I've got helmet hair, and I wanted to be presentable, so this was my solution.
That's still a thing for you, helmet hair, after all these years? You still worry about helmet hair?
Well, yeah, it doesn't go away. Like when you ski, it just happens. It's a natural side effect.
Yeah. You're like, I'm fucking Lindsey Vonn. I could have whatever kind of hair I want. Are you shitting me? By the way, as you can tell, it's my normal voice on this podcast, so you can,
I know.
Talk very freely.
Well, there isn't any other voice other than your authentic Jay voice. So
I appreciate that. Now, listen. All right. So Lindsey and I want to go back here. Lindsey, we were together with my baby sister, Michael Strahan, when I was first starting to write this book. And you knew it was about depression, anxiety, and mental health, but you never said anything about yourself during that period.
Well, you were so laser focused on writing an amazing book, which you did. And I didn't want to steer you off course or distract you from, your timeline, because you're hammering that book out. But you have your own story, and I wanted it to be your story, and I didn't want to, distract you with my own issues.
No, that's not distracting me at all. That's the whole thing. Like, we have to have teammates in this and walk this walk together. So, I do want to dive into that. I want to dive into a lot of stuff with you, but first, before we get into that, I see you have your medals up behind you and your trophies up behind you. And have you always hung them up, or has that been a recent thing? Because I know a lot of people kind of have struggles kind of celebrating themselves.
I wouldn't say, I definitely don't celebrate myself. I've actually always had them in storage. I had some of them up when I lived in Colorado, but I still didn't have enough room. And I always have had my Olympic medals in my sock drawer for some reason. And then my friend actually made this really nice shadow box for my world championship medals. And then he did just my gold medal from the Olympics. And I have that in another location. But I think after I retired, it was nice to reflect. And I actually look back at, I've got my 1994, most improved from Buck Hill, Minnesota, right next to my Laureus Award. And I think, it's just nice to reflect and look back on what I've, achieved. I never really did that when I was racing, because you're always looking for the next goal, the next achievement that you want to get to. And so you're never really present and thinking about, wow, I did a good job. Right. It's nice to see them all. I haven't seen them in a long time. So
it's great that you can celebrate yourself now. It is I think it's, I try and tell our friends and people I talk to now that I'm so vocal about this, that you got to be your own hero. You got to view yourself as your own hero. Too many of us beat ourselves down and, think that, oh man, if you're giving yourself credit, that's too cocky, or, it's, we're going to jinx ourselves. Right.
Well, and also that's kind of like a social stigma as well. I feel like a lot of people, I did one video when I put them all up, I did one video and everyone said, oh, well, way to toot your own horn and way to gloat. And I'm like, why can't I be proud of what I achieved? And it's not cocky to just say, I'm proud of myself. I've been through a lot. I've had so many surgeries, and my career has been, full of ups and downs. And I'm proud of myself for what I achieved. And I do think it's frustrating when people think that, I'm arrogant or, too confident. And I don't know, it's not who I am. I'm actually a pretty shy person, but I don't think it's a bad thing to, finally recognize what I've achieved in my life thus far.
Right. It ain't bragging if it's true. That's what I tell people. Ain't
just
bragging if it's
saying.
true, right? Just say it. And that's, and that is unfortunate that people hurt people. So everybody's hurt nowadays because of social media. So they're looking to attack anything any of us put up, which sucks. That lends into more of our mental health issues. Tell me when in your life you realized you were different, and as far as different as an athlete, different than the rest of us, which you are.
I was different all the way when I was a kid. When I was 7 years old, I was going to ski camps, the first couple with my dad, and then I was just on my own, and everyone looked at me funny, and I didn't really have a lot of friends. I went to Europe by myself when I was 9, and I didn't fit in. I never did anything. I never went to any parties. I never, I just always was on my own path. And again, I just didn't have any friends because of it. And I knew I always was different because I was always driven, and I always chose the path to success for my skiing career. And no one understood that. And even people that, I grew up with and end up being racers, they didn't make the same choices that I did. And, I think it showed definitely in the end, but I've always kind of walked my own path in that way.
Did you do that because you knew I have to do this to be different, stand out? Or is it more, because I am different, I could walk a different path than everybody?
I chose my path because I really wanted to be a ski racer. I met my idol when I was 9 years old at an autograph signing in Minnesota, Peekaboo Street. And all I wanted to do from then on was be her. And, whenever there was a decision to be made, do I go to sleep at 8 o'clock or do I go hang with these kids and do God knows what? I always said, no, I'm going to go to bed. And oftentimes I would be in bed and, my friends would come home at, 11, 12, 1 a.m. and there's a race the next day, and guess who won the race, And so I always saw that whenever I made a sacrifice, it always paid off. And so that was the reason why I walked my own path, because I was just committed to what I was focused on doing. And even if I wasn't cool, I didn't really care. This is what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and I didn't listen to anyone else.
When were you happiest in your career?
I think I was happy every day I was on the mountain. I think when I was, later in my career after my injuries, I think every injury gave me a different perspective. And I think I appreciated it more and more as time went on. I never took it for granted because I've been injured so many times. And even if I wasn't injured, I'd crash and I would know, okay, that could have been my last run of my life. You know what I mean? So I think ski racing makes you really aware of how quickly your career could be over. And so I've always had fun. And I think, again, maybe later in my career, I appreciated a little bit more, and I was able to kind of reflect and enjoy also not just the racing, but the experience of racing, being around people and, being in amazing parts of the world and, trying to experience a little bit more culture, those things also brought me joy. But, I wouldn't let myself kind of see those things until I was a little bit older and achieved enough of what I had set out to do to be able to, open my blinders a little bit more.
Obviously, I come from a different world in the football world and the fight world. The fight world may not look like it, but all of our whole crew, total fear walking down to that cage. It's different. If you don't have fear, you're an absolute psychopath. Do you have fear up there in your sport when you're flying down that mountain?
No, it's kind of the opposite. I think if you have fear, you're not able to push yourself as far as you need to win. Downhill is a unique sport. You're risking a lot. Obviously when you're fighting, you're risking a lot as well, but you have to be able to, be so on the limit and not push yourself over, but you always have to be at that limit. And I think there's a lot of, especially women, that don't agree with me on that topic. But I've never had fear. And that's one thing that I think differentiates me, is that I love to go fast. I love the thrill. And And that's one thing I really miss now in my life is that I don't have that. There's nothing that's pushing me to the edge of my limit,
Right.
with that risk and adrenaline and excitement. There's just nothing like it in the world.
What victory are you most proud of?
Um, a lot of them, I mean, especially after, injuries, but I
Mhm.
think what stands out to me is the Olympic a gold medal because of how much that meant to my family. My family, I'm the oldest of five kids, and
Right.
my family sacrificed a lot to get there. And I felt like that was kind of the culmination of all of our hard work that equaled, something that I set out to do when I was 9 years old, and that's why it was so meaningful to me and my family.
So now I'm going to shift gears here with you because obviously this is a mental health podcast, and I've been open that I have, my mental health issues. They're clinical: depression, anxiety, ADD. Might as well throw in a little bipolar. I mean, shit, you could probably diagnose me as that by now, right?
I didn't say it. I didn't say it,
Yeah,
Jay.
you probably like he's tripolar. He's not bipolar. So, what what are your mental health issues, and how do they feel for you?
I have depression and I've had it since I was a teenager. I think, being on the road and away from any type of support system was really hard on me, and not having an outlet or anyone to talk to. I got really good at managing it in a way that, I obviously didn't tell anyone about it. And as an athlete, depression, I think, is viewed as weakness. And that's not the case at all. It's, something that a lot of people deal with. And it's kind of like, I always feel like it's like an injury, or a muscle strain, it's something that you have to work on. And it's not like it goes away. It's, a lot of people, when I started talking about my depression in 2012, the response was really interesting because no one was really talking about it at that time. And, everyone's like, "Oh, how are you feeling
That's
today? Like,
brave.
do you want a Tylenol? Like, are you taking your medication today? Is that gonna, I'm like, I'm not, it's not like I take a Tylenol every time I feel sad. That's not how it works. And, I think there's a lot more understanding around, depression and just mental health in general, which is amazing. But, I definitely found ways to cope with it and, to manage it and, to keep it my problem and not, share it with anyone else.
That's really brave for you to come out then, because again, I was able to hear people like you and Terry Bradshaw talk about it before I really came out. I'm just trying to give it words so more of us could have the conversation. You can lean into somebody and, all right, now I know how to talk to my son or daughter or husband or wife, or even had a grandmother reach out saying for the first time in 80 years, like, now I have the words to tell my husband and kids and grandkids what I've been going through. So that's really brave that you did it all the way back then. What propelled you to do it? What got you to say, you know what, I'm going to come out with this?
I mean, it was a time in my life when I was kind of unpacking a lot of things and um, publicly tumultuous, with my relationship that ended. And I felt like it was something that I needed to get off my shoulders. I felt like I was carrying this weight around and I was sick of it. I was sick of feeling like I didn't have anyone. And I knew a lot of people that were struggling with it as well. I mean, a really good friend of mine is the reason why I even went to a doctor because, he was like, I think this would really help you. Um, and so for me, it was what I needed personally. And I think that the hope was that it would help others, but the
Right.
main reason was myself and just my own journey and how do I become a better person, and in turn, hopefully that will help other people in their journey as well.
It's amazing. Again, you keep it inside. I kept it inside for all these years, but like physically, right? We break our arm, you get a cast. Hey, everybody signs it.
I know
Right.
that's the funny thing is that, like, I think you are a really shining example of, how physically strong you can be, and, nothing phases you. You can get kicked in the face and you're like, all right, do it again, you know, but, mental health is something totally different. And it needs just as much care as, again, like physical therapy or, rehab from an injury. It's very, very similar, but no one approaches it that way. And I think again, like just because you're physically strong or just because, you're smiling, on the outside or to your friends doesn't mean on the inside you're not dealing with something.
Yeah. Listen, I thought, man, once I got to where I was in my career, it'd be all rainbows and unicorns. And you find out, Urala's not an antidepressant. A lot of the other things are not antidepressants. You got to learn how to love yourself up from the inside out. I now, because I've gone this journey, now I have a lot of tools I could use when that beast is coming out of the box. And it probably comes out of the box more now than it had because I talk about it so much. It's so prevalent in my life, which is my choice. So I can be of service to people. But now I have things I do every morning. When the beast gets out of the box later, before I go to bed, what are some of the practices and tools you use to kind of, keep the roommates in your head talking nicely to each other?
I have to physically exert myself almost every day. I need that outlet. I need to like recenter and refocus and just, feel confident in myself and, keep those thoughts away. Whenever I'm inactive, things creep in and, it's just a really slippery slope. So that's one of the reasons why, the gym is so important to me still after retirement. And one thing that always helped me keep it at bay when I was racing was that I was racing. I felt like honestly, ski racing was always my therapist.
Right.
And, when I was in the starting gate, it was always the most peaceful and clear-headed and happy that I was the entire day. Is that the same, when you fight, or like, what do you do to help?
Oh, yeah, no, I need a team. So that's why look, I'm going for another back cleanup Thursday.
Jay,
what? I gotta get it cleaned up.
So many back things.
How are you shaming me for that? Are you kidding me?
No, now I know where to send my Ben and Jerry's. I'll send it to your house.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a little clean out again. And then, but Friday I went and wrestled this football player, Eric Wilson, trained him. And the other guys in the gym were like, what the fuck are you doing? But my main head coach over there, Jason Borby, he's like, no, you're doing what you have to do. Like when I'm not around those guys and I'm not able to, have that fight team, if you will. The roommates in my head do not talk nicely to each other. But what I've had to do as a result too is figure out other ways of having teams, not just that. So now when I'm having bad days, I call 4 people to tell them I'm struggling. Our friend, The Rock, is one of them who literally stops everything when I'm like, oh, it's one of those days. Strahan's one now, which I never did until I came out with this book. So even though I wrote about it, we never talked vulnerable like this until one night. I was like, I can't go out tonight. And he was like, why? And I just told him for the first time. And he's like, why have you never told me? Like, I could have been there for you as your best friend for 30 years. I'm like, I don't make up the rules of this shit. With you, I felt shame.
It is what it is.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But you also have seen our dynamic. We constantly get on each other. So it was like, right? Like there was like shame with him, but then his reaction was like, but I could have been there for 30 years. So now I know to call like 4 people and tell them. And then I'll call 4 other people just to check up on them and not tell them what's happening with me. And that's my way of being of service. And that's my way of still having, a team around me without having to go in a cage and have Randy Couture, tear my head off.
Yeah, that's solid. Yeah, I'm still really bad at sharing and communicating, and like I'll just kind of go silent and coop myself up, and then people are like, "What is going on with
That's
you?"
the worst thing we could do.
I know, it's so bad. It's like I have to stay. I try to stay around people. I have a really great tendency of hibernating, and it's nice in the mountains to do that. But then that's a bad place for me to be. So I do have people that notice it, and then I also have my therapist, Dr. Mondo, that I always call if I need him. But I still have a hard time sharing because I feel like, I like telling my story because I think that I hope that it helps other people share their story, but I still have a hard time communicating when I'm having a hard time.
Well, since I understand you, why don't we change some patterns here. When
Okay.
we're going through
All
this.
right.
Now reach out to me and be like, Dusty, I'm fucking having one of those dark days.
All right. I'll do it, Bestie.
Because that lifts me up also. That helps me, I'm able to be there for you. And that's what we have to do. And that's what, I really think, we're in the majority, Linz. I don't think we're in the minority.
Oh, we're for sure in the majority. And that's the funny part is that,
right?
It's like there's this huge stigma and everyone thinks that it's this bad thing. It's like everyone is dealing with it, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, especially after COVID.
Right.
And I think COVID was kind of an eye opener for a lot of people because I think they were able to hide things maybe to themselves and to others, that what they were struggling with. But it became very clear for pretty much everyone, when COVID hit that, there's things that need to be addressed. And I think that it made everyone more empathetic because we all have issues, we all have struggles and it's a matter of supporting each other. That's the only way that we get through it.
And I think the more we show people we're in the majority, the more people will be comfortable coming out and talking about it and leaning into each other. And, I go and speak to these sports teams. I'm like, look, there's just not enough therapists out there for us yet. So you have to be each other's therapists and lean into each other. And that's where somebody like you and somebody like myself could really help, I think, lead this next generation. I'm hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, when I'm, like I said, I'm bad at communicating. I do journal a lot. And that's kind of my way of like working through things. If I don't have someone that I can talk to. Before I had Dr. Mondo, I was always journaling. I've been journaling since I was like 10, but I didn't really realize, how helpful it was until, later. But that's my process of like, what am I dealing with? What can I do to make myself feel better? And even just the process of writing it down and acknowledging what I'm going through is helpful.
I just started it. I learned it.
Really?
Yeah. And I learned it.
Well, the book is honestly, it's a way of journaling as well. So to be honest. Okay.
So the book comes out and this year, again, I have an anxiety attack and I talk about it in the book every time I've been on TV from 2005 to now, even like scripted stuff. So it became like, it just became habitual. And this year, first show, I didn't have one of Fox and NFL Sunday. And then the second show, I didn't have one. Third show. And I was like, what? And I was talking to Lane Johnson from the Eagles, he had his own issue and left the team. And he started talking about how journaling was helping him. And I was like, oh, wait, hold on a sec. I haven't had an anxiety attack these first 3 weeks. Wait, maybe, yes, journaling for me. Maybe this has helped me. So I started as a result, exactly what you're saying. I started as a result of that.
Yeah.
It was huge. And now
good job,
every day,
buddy.
Thank you, bud. And now every day also I journal, I wake up in the morning and write down 10 things I'm grateful for that happened the previous day.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
I had this, there's actually a journal that says like, it's kind of the 3 things I'm grateful for, my 3 goals for the day. And I used to do that at night, but then it really got my brain going. And then I have a really hard time sleeping. And so that did not help. So instead of like, if I do the gratefulness, exercise, I'll do it in the morning. And then at night I'll do my regular journaling, which is helpful.
Okay. I love that. Oh, that's actually good. Cause I kind of lumped them together. I'm going to try that. I'm going to start doing that. Hey, couple more things before I let you go. Why don't you talk about your foundation?
So I have a foundation I started in 2015, and we try to empower underserved girls through scholarships and programs. It's been one of the most rewarding things that I've done in my life. We've helped girls who, struggled a lot with self-confidence, that they do self-harm, and, we've brought them through these camps, and they've all seen a huge change, especially their parents and their self-confidence levels. And then we also obviously do scholarships, which, since COVID has been kind of the majority of what we've been doing, with 50% sports-based scholarships and 50% educational-based scholarships. So I'm just trying to, empower the next generation, and it has nothing to do with skiing. It just has to do with, telling girls that they can be whatever they dream of becoming.
Right. This is not just for athletes, right? This is for all.
No, it's for anyone. I mean, I have an aeronautical engineer who got a scholarship, so, and she is a boss, she's like this 14-year-old boss who wants to, work for NASA. And I'm like, yes, I will help you.
I love that. And then, so now here's the thing. I just moved here to Malibu. So my old house, I had these bookshelves up and Rise was right there behind my shoulder. But now you can see I just got a janky setup over here because I haven't put up bookshelves yet. Tell everybody about your book.
Thanks. It's just really about, sharing my experiences in life. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with skiing, but there is a lot of skiing in there, but
I was like,
mainly
what are you talking about? Yes, it does.
But the moral of all my stories are inspirational stories and how I've overcome things and, what I've experienced and more on the emotional side than, it's not about, what I've won or how I got there. It's, really about what I've overcome and how I got through it and, what I've experienced in my 20-year of professional skiing life.
By the way, do you remember our first dinner? I said to you, all right, let's go over our surgeries. How many surgeries you have? And because I was like, hey, you got to be proud of your scars. How many surgeries you have? And you said,
I don't know. I only count the big ones. So 9.
No. I think you said like 14 or something.
Okay. Well, yeah, but if I count all the times I've been cut open,
yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
but I don't generally
I wasn't expecting
count
that, but you should, because those are things you still overcame. I can't be. There's no major or minor. When somebody cuts into your body changes forever. It's never going to be the same again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's not discount it. So Lindsey says 14, and I just was like, "Fuck!" I wasn't expecting that. So I said 17. She said, "What?" And then Strahan immediately said, "You haven't had fucking 17 surgeries." Just pulled that.
I was like, holy crap, someone's got more surgeries than me. This is a first.
I just didn't want to lose to Lindsey Vonn there.
Exaggerating. Yeah, exactly.
But you got to be proud of your scars. And that's, I think, a huge thing for everybody. Do you look at your scars now as a badge of honor? Do you look at them? Are you able to, of things, man, I've overcome this, to have my dreams come true?
I mean, I honestly don't notice them anymore because they're just a part of me. Okay. That's my story. That's, how I got to be where I am. Yeah. I mean, I think I always made very sure when I went to surgery, I said, listen, you guys better not F up these scars because they're big and I don't want to look crazy. And they did. They always did a really good job. They're like, I spent an extra 30 minutes making this scar look good. I'm like, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. But yeah, that's a part of me. It's a part of my life. And, there's not enough derma in the world to make my scars look better, but I'm proud of it. I'm stronger because of what I've been through. So
makes you a beautiful gangster. And it's also, I now try and tell teams and athletic trainers, hey, when you have a player who comes in, let's say it's an ACL, don't just ask them, hey, how you doing? Like, they're not doing good.
No.
So, right? So don't just throw it away. Hey, really find out how they're doing, how you can help them as they're coming off this, year-long thing when you're not able to do the thing that you love.
I think especially in team sports, but generally whenever you're a professional athlete and you get injured, the phone stops ringing. People don't care anymore how you're doing because you're not winning at something. And I think that's the hardest thing to kind of overcome is that you're surrounded by this great team. And then the second you get injured, you're by yourself. Is it your family? Do you have a PT? There might be, a friend or two, but the numbers aren't big. And so I think making sure and checking in on athletes that are injured is means so much. It's such a big deal, but everyone overlooks it because they're like, they're taking care of the injury. Like they'll be fine. They'll be back here in a year, but a year is a really long time.
Right.
When you're learning how to walk again, and you're on crutches, like shit is no joke. So check in on your friends that are injured. It makes a big difference.
A week is a big deal because you're right. You get like the NFL, hey, you're put to the side over here, or fight game, you're not there, right?
No, with team sports, you're
right. Yep. Put over here, you go rehab, and the rest of us go practice. And that's lonely. And I don't think anyone's ever taken care of or even started to think about, hey, maybe we got to take care of these athletes' mental health while we're rehabbing them physically as well.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Last question here for you. This is what I ask all my guests. Your final question.
Okay.
Give me your unbreakable moment. The thing that should have broken you and didn't. And as a result, you came to the other side of that tunnel stronger for the rest of your life.
I mean, Jay, that list is really long. There's been many unbreakable moments. I think probably my second when I blew out my knee in 2013, ACL, MCL, tibial plateau fracture, and then 10 months later I did it again. Just no MCL, and basically the entire world wrote me off, and it almost broke me. It was close. It was probably one of the hardest times of my life, but I crawled my way out. I learned how to walk again. I learned how to didn't run. Running was out of the question, but I won my second race back, and that was basically 2 years of being out of competition, and that was probably one of my proudest moments. I cried like a little baby.
Good.
And I guarantee you that no one else would have been able to do what I did.
I love that. You're about to make me cry, but that's okay. I'm secure with my manhood. You're
yes, you are, as you should be.
Well, that is incredible. Just take me real quick before I do let you go. When you did win that, take me behind your eyes, like behind your rib cage. How did that feel? Like for those of us who never experienced that.
I mean, it's like when I crossed the finish line and saw number one, I let out, similar to what I did at the Olympics in 2010, just this like scream from my gut, from so deep within me. And it just was like, let it all out. It was so much hard work, so much sweat, so many tears. And I just kind of like emotionally imploded, and it felt so good. It felt so good to let it out, and, to just acknowledge what I've been through and know that I'd come out on top despite it all. And, my team was crying, like everyone was crying. And it was one of the most amazing experiences, second only to the Olympics, but a lot harder to do than the Olympics, to be honest.
Amazing. Listen, Lindsey, I appreciate your time, and you're amazing in so many ways, but I'm most proud that you're my bestie.
Thanks, bestie. I'm proud that you're my bestie too.
Thank you. And now you're going to start calling me, right? When you go through those dark days. Good.
We're walking this walk together.
Lindsey Vonn, thank you for joining us here on the Unbreakable Mental Health Podcast.